Welcome to the NCDWI Guide podcast, where defenders of the Constitution assemble to prepare for courtroom battle and firm owners gather to develop marketing strategies that will revolutionize the practice of criminal defense. Here's your host, the NCDWI guy, Jake Minnick.
Hello, fellow freedom fighters, and welcome to episode 209 of the NCDWI Guy podcast. On today's episode, we continue the Warriors on the Battlefield series, highlighting some of the young leaders in criminal defense across the state of North Carolina. On today's episode, I talked to Robert DiDomenico. I had to make sure that I get his last name right. I wrote down, make sure that I had that pronunciation right. We laughed about that a good bit as we were kind of talking through the episode prep. Really had a fun conversation with Robert about his starting his practice as a straight out of law school, joining up with Ben Hiltzheimer in the Durham area. Ben is an amazing criminal defense and DWI lawyer. I have seen Ben's posts on the North Carolina NCAJ listserv going years back. Just an absolute star of criminal defense. Robert is his associate attorney. And so we get kind of the perspective of an associate in this episode. And Robert has got a really great kind of style, presentation and communication style. You can tell that he is just soaking in like a sponge everything that he has learned with Ben over these past few years. Robert talks about his kind of pre-law career in acting and some of the lessons learned from that acting career, how they apply in the law, some of the life lessons that he took away from that, his time in law school, and then some of the lessons that he has now learned along the path with Ben, and how an associate attorney could really add business value to the law practice that they are operating in. So this Young Leader series has really had some just incredible insights from the guests that I've had on these past 9 episodes about how to do business development at the early stage of a firm, how to do it in the mature phase, joining up with a lawyer that's been practicing for a long time, hanging your own shingle straight out of law school, how to partner with a firm that is kind of in the succession planning or exit stage and really adopt some of the tools and techniques of partnering in a kind of a takeover a role of a firm. And so there's just been some amazing insights about how to build relationships, how to provide a better client experience. These are episodes really worth taking a listen to because there's just been some incredible young stars, young leaders of criminal defense that have kind of talked about how they have grown their criminal defense practice and how they have grown their criminal defense business as we've kind of talked through some of these topics. So Robert has got some incredible insights. Before I kind of turn the floor over to Robert and kind of give way to the conversation that we had, I begin every episode of the podcast by the words, "Hello, fellow freedom fighters." And that is the North Carolina criminal defense lawyers that are listening in to this podcast. Now, we gather here in this kind of virtual space, so to speak. Whenever and wherever you are listening to the podcast, you gather with your brothers and sisters in the criminal defense community by listening into this podcast. But is there a place where you can actually sit down in person with your fellow freedom fighters, the other warriors of criminal defense, the other young leaders of criminal defense, and have meaningful conversations about how to improve your practice, how to improve your business, and most importantly, how to improve your life? Fortunately, the answer is yes. Freedom Fighter Summit 2.0 is just around the corner, coming up on September the 26th and 27th in Asheville again at the same location we did last year's event at. If you missed last year's summit, you missed big. It was an amazing lineup of speakers. The lawyers and their teams that came out to this event were just incredible. And as planned, we have continued the conversation through virtual meetings. We've started a business book club through the Freedom Fighters app and website that we launched at last year's summit. This is the place to come together. If you are a North Carolina criminal defense lawyer that is looking to improve your business, this is the place to come. This is what we are focused on, improving the business of operating a law firm in the criminal defense practice area in the state of North Carolina. Do not miss out on this amazing opportunity to learn and grow with the fellow freedom fighter attendees that will be at the summit in September. We're going to have 120 people at this year's summit. It is going to be wild. We've got the lineup of speakers on the website, highlighted by Echelon Front's Jamie Cochran. Echelon Front is a leadership team, leadership guru training center founded by Jocko Willink, who's got the sign up behind me. And Jamie is the chief operating officer and just an absolute dynamo of leadership and energy, killing it in business, killing it on the personal front, and a person to look up to as a hero in business. We've got a great program planned for the summit. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. But if you want to spend time with your fellow freedom fighters, you do not want to miss the Freedom Fighter Summit in September. And with that being said, I turn the floor over to Robert. Well, Rob, I am certainly excited about having a kind of in-depth conversation about the practice of criminal defense that we both have a big passion for. It's been fun as I have been kind of helping get our new attorney down in Durham County these last couple months, get kind of trained up in Durham. It's been fun to meet some of the faces and names that I only knew before coming down that way. And so you are somebody I've certainly seen. You and Ben are somebody that I've certainly followed kind of from a distance, but it's been a real blast kind of getting to talk with you in person during the downtime at the court breaks here over the last few months. So very much appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom and love of the game with the audience.
Happy to do it. As I've said before, I feel somewhat unworthy to be here, as I've not been doing it long, but I have a great tutor and a great mentor, and it's been a wonderful experience so far. And I'm happy to speak with you, and whatever information I could give you that could be helpful for someone further on down the road. Happy to be in this position.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is I think we've got a lot of good items to talk about. I mean, we're doing this kind of young leaders series on the podcast, and obviously I think this really applies. I mean, you definitely had some pretty strong leadership positions while you were at UNC, and maybe we can kind of dive into that a little bit. But I think that it's really important, I feel like, to kind of get perspective of lawyers around the state in terms of what are some of the issues that are coming up at the kind of local level, and where is the practice of law going, and having people from a whole plethora of different perspectives, I think has really been powerful. I've gotten a ton of value out of these warrior podcast series that we've been kind of doing, that this is a part of. So really excited to talk about that. But I guess before we get too deep into the conversation, take us back in time in terms of what kind of led down the path to law school. You were sharing kind of acting ambitions maybe prior to that, and then what ultimately led to criminal defense.
Yeah. So I think when I was very young, I think my parents told me that I should be an attorney, but for all of the wrong reasons, which was I was just, would argue with them all the time about everything. But I never
It was a
really
way of telling you you were being disrespectful.
exactly. Oh yeah, that's right. You should be an attorney. Yeah. But I didn't know what I was going to do when I was a kid. I went through the whole Marine, astronaut, paleontologist, the whole gamut. And then I got involved almost by accident in music and theater when I was in high school. I developed a great love for both of them. Ended up going to college for theater, studied acting and musical theater, and was dead set on going to New York and giving the acting thing a shot. So I moved up there. I lived there starting from about 2015, ending in 2017. And I had the opportunity to do a little acting, off Broadway. I got a survival job as a Title I teacher at that time as well. So I was able to do a lot of stuff. And in the middle of some of my teaching experiences and some of my acting experiences, in particular, one particular show where I felt like myself and the rest of the cast was not being treated in the way that the contract had outlined we were supposed to have been treated. And that was becoming to the physical and mental and emotional detriment of the cast. Long story short, we ended up kind of going on strike. And since I had found myself kind of being the loudest mouth in the group about how things were wrong, I was kind of put in a position where I was able to speak for the cast with the management to help get something fixed. So I had this opportunity where I was able to kind of talk with all the cast, like get representatives and like figure out the problems. And we were able to put together a solution, and we were able to get that solution in front of the management, and we were able to get positive changes, and we were able to change things. And it was a really profound and fulfilling thing for me, because the reason that I got into acting originally was because, number one, it's fun, but number two, you had the potential to do this performance, and then if you did it correctly and the source material was good and everyone bought in, you have this good production, you could do this incredibly wonderful, meaningful work. And then at the end of your performance and your performance with your group, somebody out in the audience could be affected by the work that you do and then think about their life and have this positive impact and, just think about things differently. And I think that's the beauty of theater and the arts, entertainment, just to begin with. It has the ability to affect you in such a profound way and make you, in some circumstances, want to change something or do something positive and be a source of positivity. And what I realized when I was up in New York is that the type of acting that I found myself doing most often, I was not feeling like I was doing stuff like that. And I saw the people that were, and I saw the way that they approached acting and how it just enveloped every part of their life. And it was really cool. But I realized that it was not necessarily me. And then at the same time that was happening, I had this experience where I was able to be a part of something where instead of me doing a performance and somebody else saying, I'm going to make this change for myself, I was able to be in a position where I could do something personally and then personally bring about this positive impact and make some sort of positive change. And it didn't rely on it being one person removed. And I kind of realized it was really fun to do that too. And it was incredibly fulfilling. And it kind of gave me, in my mind, a control over my own destiny in a way that I don't think that you get a lot in the arts, wherein, if you're auditioning for things, you could be great for the part, someone else could be great for the part and they could know somebody, or they fit into the costume better and it means that they won't have to spend $10,000 redoing the entire, thing, so that they have to make these necessary changes to the person. So there are all these other intangibles that go into being able to do these things in the arts that I felt like in law, you have more personal agency over your own future and your own destiny. And that really appealed to me too. Also, I love North Carolina. So much. So much. I remember every time I would leave on the plane, I'd be looking, I'd be leaving New York and you're just looking at, incredibly Manhattan, this beautiful, cityscape, but all this concrete. And then by the time that I would land at RDU, you just look out at this beautiful blanket of trees.
Yes.
It's just all green and it's so nice. And every time I would come back, I would just feel like so peaceful. And I'd be like, I'm back in North. So the idea of, something that I could do in North Carolina, be by my family, be by my friends, and still have the capacity to start a career, all these things kind of got together and then got me on the path of law. Studied for the LSAT for 8 months, got it where I wanted it to be, went to school at Carolina, and, really never looked back since then.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that there's a lot to take away from that kind of dive into acting. And I mean, I think one of the things that is really interesting about that is a lot of people that I have talked to that have, pursued careers in acting or, looked at going to school for acting, it's very, I think most of us are kind of this way with whatever career path we pursue, but somewhat, self-centered of like, this is something that really brings me joy and passion. And so it's kind of interesting to hear part of your journey, being the love of kind of the audience reaction and being able to make a difference in the lives of an audience member. I mean, theater really does, have a lasting impact. I mean, I think one of the things that's so beautiful about being a lawyer is the ability to tell stories, which is how human beings, in my opinion, learn, like is through the art of storytelling. And what better, storytelling mechanism is there than, theater? I mean, it's such a rich experience where you get to be even more so than like a book or a movie. You're part of the story. Like you're literally like kind of engaged in the story, and the people on stage are a lot of times feeding off of the audience and really trying to kind of gauge timing based on audience response. I mean, you're really part of the experience. And so that's really just a cool thing to hear. And I think to me, it's really one of the reasons why jury trials are just such a blast, because it's the closest that I think that I'll probably ever get to theater. And there's definitely something in me that, kind of just enjoys that kind of shared process of journeying towards the truth with everybody else that's in the courtroom. But when there's a jury in the courtroom, it's just something special. So that art of, telling a story, even though that's a scripted story, is very similar. I feel like, as lawyers, we're basically, or actors is what we are. So
Yeah, no, I love theater. I think it's a tremendous thing. It's one of the oldest, I would have to imagine it's one of the oldest things that humanity has that we just like
yes.
keep doing as far as an art form, as far as a cultural thing. You see it all over the world. So there's something so very human about it. And I'm incredibly grateful that I had the opportunity, in large part because of my family, because I have, incredibly supportive parents, family, and friends, to be able to get that training. And I think that there are facets of it that I find, are they're great for everything. I mean, whether it be
Yes.
law or anything else,
Yeah.
there's facets of just the humanity of theater that I think
Yes.
translate to all different walks of life. And I find even, with law, even the basic precepts of just listening to somebody
Yeah.
and answering and having your answer and what you do be informed by what you are hearing from the person is just, it's a very simple thing, but it's a very vital thing. And I think it could be very effective.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. I think that there is, understanding the human condition is really a big part of being a great lawyer. I mean, understanding, what pain points people dealing with, and how, how a, in our case, criminal charge is impacting their life. I mean, it just is so critical to have that like kind of human element always kind of top of mind. And so, yeah, I think coming from that humanities background is a huge leg up in terms of delivering basically human-centered service. And that's really, to me, like a really, really critical part of running a great law practice.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, as you transitioned into law school, obviously it seemes like you did pretty good in law school. You got
I'm not gonna
a
lie, man.
3L class president at UNC. So tell a little bit about your law school experience.
I will tell you, law school kicked my butt. Very well. I did very well in undergrad. I had a strong GPA coming in, but there's a certain amount of academic rigor and reading and critical thinking that I find that I did not really focus on, or was not the focus of my theatrical training. So it was kind of like there were a lot of things that I didn't spend my undergrad doing that I had to learn how to do for law school.
Yeah.
Just the commitment to, not just learning lines and learning stuff, but like critically reading so much stuff, because you just do so much reading in law
Yeah.
school,
Yeah, for
just so
sure.
much. So that there was certainly a big jump. And I was not, I was very much in the middle for a very long time, and that was very much a gut check, but it was motivation to try harder. And it's one of those things where it's like Cortez burning the ships. It's like you don't have a choice. The way that I viewed it is like I was in it, so I was going to finish it, and I was going to do it. And also, anyway, yeah. So that worked out. I ended up focusing, of course, on the grades, wanted to get good on the grades, but then also on all the other parts of law school, which was the connections that you make,
Yes.
the professors that you have, the opportunities that being in law school gives you. There are so many things. And I know that if I could have told myself anything as a 1L, where I was just so hyper focused on grades and oh my God, I got to get I got to be in the top of the curve, and oh, what am I going to do? There's so many other things that are so important. There's so many things that you learn. Like, it is okay. It's okay. Like, it's going to be fine. You will graduate and you'll do your thing. But while you're there, don't forget all of the other things. So there were
Yes.
these clinics I was able to do. There were spring break pro bono trips where, you don't have to wait till you pass the bar and become an attorney until you could start doing the cool law stuff, under correct supervision in clinics, going on things where you can help and do pro bono work, whether that be assisting an attorney in creating a will or an expunction, or going through transcripts where I didn't personally do transcript work, but I know it's something that people do, like with the Innocence Project, where you're going through these transcripts and you're preparing these summaries so that attorneys can look at, motions for appropriate relief or post-conviction help. There are all of these incredible opportunities that you could take. I guess one of those also is SBA, where you can help, just help out your class, and you could try to listen to the things that are going on in your school and with your classmates, and you try to be their voice and act in their best interests in whatever way you can. So
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that it's I didn't come from like a business background, and so like going into law school, I the undergraduate school that I went to was pretty academic, and so I felt like somewhat prepared on that front. But I dove kind of like headfirst into academics and really ignored a lot of the social aspect of law school through the first year, and then kind of like had a little bit of a I wouldn't say like come to Jesus moment, but just more of like I'm kind of focusing in the wrong space. Like, this is an opportunity to build connections. This is the opportunity to build relationships. And, as my good friend Ron Shook would say, I went to the prestigious and now defunct Charlotte School of Law. And it is crazy because, despite having been closed now for a number of years, and all of the turmoil that Charlotte Law went through in its last few years, there's still this an incredible alumni Facebook page where people are constantly sending each other cases and covering, a court in one county, bouncing ideas off of each other about how to deal with a specific legal issue. I mean, it is like active, like multiple posts a day. And it's kind of like, man, that's the beauty that I feel like needs to get emphasized as you go into law school. It'd be interesting to see if you could do like a study of people that approach law school from like, what is my class ranking and how do I kind of like beat everybody else out, versus people that are like, this is a networking opportunity for 3 years, like, and again, obviously there's a lot of gray in between because there's probably most people are dealing with a mixture of both. But I do think that if you treat law school as the networking opportunity, you are at a much better position as you come out of law school and open your own practice than if you just kind of went through law school with your head down and like, everybody in here is my competitor. Like, I mean, it's just, doesn't work. So
yeah. And it's just not pleasant. If you're like, I need to fight everybody all the time, like, that's no fun.
Yeah, it's no fun at all.
And it's also, as I agree with you so much on the connections part. I think that, it's a spectrum, right? Some people are going to fall somewhere within those two extremes. But I mean, how many times in your own life have you been asked, hey, I need an attorney for this. Do you know anybody? And it's like, I only do really criminal defense with very few exceptions. And it's a lot of people ask me about other stuff, business stuff, family stuff. And I'm glad that I had the opportunity to make connections in law school, because I could say, I don't do that, but I know someone who does, or I don't do that, but I think my friend is adjacent to this and they'll be able to find someone for you to do that thing. So it's great. So yeah, it's important.
Yeah, it's super important. I think that that's just good reflection. I just wish that there was more emphasis on that as you went into law school. I'm sure they talk about some of the things to kind of like do, how to succeed in orientation, but I just feel like that message was not really loud and clear. Unfortunately, it was a pretty small class at Charlotte Law. I think we were the pioneer class, and so we had 60. I think it was about 60 students. So you got to know everybody. I mean, there was that you could not know everybody else in the room. But I think that just needs to be a big emphasis on that. So as you came out of law school, what kind of led down the path of criminal defense? And then obviously Ben has just got, such an incredible practice. I've seen him answering posts on the criminal listserv, for years. I mean, just this, star of criminal defense. So how did you end up with Ben?
Yeah, he's crazy smart. I remember I was still late on into the hiring and sending out the resume game. For me, when I was looking at what I wanted to do with a law degree, I knew that I wanted to do something that was people-centric. I knew that I wanted to do something that was going to keep me on my feet. And I knew that I wanted to do something that I felt was going to be fulfilling and meaningful. And I was in no rush to go into a lot of jobs that I thought were going to put me in golden handcuffs, where it's like, oh, I could be making a lot of money, but am I going to be happy? Am I going to enjoy my work? Am I going to have the time to do the things that I find important in life? And am I going to be am I going to be fulfilled? And I talked to at UNC, we have the career development office, which is a phenomenal office, and they bend over backwards to do everything to help their students. And I love them for that. And I talked to a guy over there, and I kind of told him how I thought about law, what I was looking for, the kinds of jobs I was interested in. And how I wasn't in a rush. I didn't really feel like I wanted to go into something that I wasn't going to enjoy and wasn't going to be worthwhile, because law school is hard.
It is hard. Yeah.
Like, if you're going to do all that and become a lawyer, if you could find something that you'd like to do, do it. It's a lot of work to get there. And I remember he sent me an email and he said, hey, we just had this attorney that put in a job posting. And I think that it sounds like something that you might be interested in. And Ben had put in a posting, and it was kind of like, the most important thing for me is I'm looking for someone that wants to become a trial attorney. That's what I'm looking for. I want to train someone to do it, and we'll figure out the other stuff. But I want, basically, it was a really low key, inviting post where it was like, the most important thing is I want someone that wants to do this type of work, and don't feel like any of these other things should stand in your way from you trying to, see if this is the right fit for you.
That's awesome.
And I read his page and I looked at his reviews, and reviews are great. I like the way that he talked about the work. Ben, he started in the DC Public Defender Service. So he did that for, I think, 5 years, if I'm not mistaken. So the way that he approaches his practice is that it is incredibly, incredibly people-centric. And it is incredibly about helping people out that are in tough spaces. And I think that we see that in our business approach as well. It starts with the client person. And I liked that. And I liked how people that were talking about their, having him as their attorney, but like, he cared about it. He answered my calls, and it was just that simple humanity about, this is a person that was out there doing things to help people, and that he seemed to be pretty good at it. I was like, well, this looks pretty cool. And he also seemed pretty low key. And I like to think that I'm fairly low key. So I wrote like a fairly irreverent cover letter that started off with, Mr. Hiltzheimer, from one intimidating last name to another, it is a pleasure to make your acquaintance. I was like, I'm going to cut to the chase. I want to be a really, really good trial attorney. And I think it looks like you're one of those. And I think that you could teach me to do that. So we ended up having an interview, and it went on for 2 hours, and it was wide ranging. And we kind of got a feel for where each other were on certain things and how we approach work and the law and all that. And I ended up getting the job, and it's been wonderful, and I love it. So
that is awesome. Yeah, I think a couple of like great takeaways from that is, I think, from a hiring perspective, if you are looking for, an associate, a paralegal, anybody on your team, identifying like what is the most important, kind of function or role that this new team member is going to fill, and what are kind of like the values that are important to carrying this out well. And I think that, if you're looking for a trial lawyer and you want somebody that is going to get up in front of a judge and argue cases, get up in front of a jury, making that kind of like a front and center item is so critical. And I think sometimes, a lot of job postings can be very bland to some extent. We're looking for an associate attorney, in criminal defense. Like, I feel like for us, the more we've kind of like gotten specific with, here's what we are looking for. And we definitely like have that kind of similar trial language in our ads. Like, if you're looking to get up and argue cases in front of a judge, and, you're not looking to push papers around, like this is a, you're in the courtroom arguing, you want to get those specific job items really front and center to get the right person to respond to that ad. And then I just think also from the review standpoint, kind of hearing you talk about checking out, Ben's reviews before applying. I think this is one of the things that a lot of people forget about, Google reviews, Yelp reviews, wherever it is that clients and or other lawyers or people are leaving reviews. It's not just potential clients that are looking at those things. It's, potential job applicants. It is other attorneys in the area or other areas that might be looking to refer a case. And so, we've heavily emphasized at the firm here the importance of Google reviews for our various office locations. And I think, generally speaking, we kind of focus on, this is, how we're trying to get potential clients, one way that we're trying to get potential clients to call. But it goes beyond that. Like, the value of those reviews, that online reputation now is just so difficult, or maybe not difficult, so important to really try to kind of create the right online reputation through great work. And it goes beyond just trying to get new clients to call. It's really a referral piece, a hiring piece. And so that both of those things just kind of stuck out at me.
Yeah, for sure. Sure.
Well, in terms of kind of criminal defense, what have been some of kind of the, biggest kind of criminal defense takeaways, whether you've learned those from Ben or just being kind of in and out of district court? What have been some of kind of like the biggest criminal defense lessons learned?
I think it goes back to I think, in my opinion, one of the most important things about criminal defense goes back to what we talked about earlier, and it's just recognizing the humanity of everyone. Your client, the district attorney, the judge, the clerks, the person working in the, at the metal detector, every single person in the court system, recognizing humanity and treating them with respect, and just trying to have respect and treat people the way that you want to be treated. And I think that is just of utmost importance. And I think that one of the beautiful things about criminal defense and, being a criminal defense attorney is having the opportunity to be the representative of that person and of that person's humanity. And it's a heavy, I wouldn't say it's a heavy burden, but it's a weighty thing that we're entrusted to do. And I think that the knowledge and the appreciation for the job that we have is one of my major takeaways. Like, people turn to attorneys when they have things going on in their life that are incredibly serious. They find themselves in a system that is confusing, sometimes archaic, or other times not, but equally as confusing. And they're looking for someone to help them through it. And, we have the opportunity and the honor of being those people. So I think one of the main takeaways for me about criminal defense work is the gravity of the work and the potential to really help people through what could be the toughest time in their life. So I think just approaching the work every day with that in mind, and never forgetting that, and never losing sight of that, is one of my main takeaways.
Yeah, I think criminal defense is so personal. I mean, it's so deeply personal. I think that it's really one of the beautiful things about practicing. When I first came out of law school, I was working at a local firm, solo practitioner, that had brought me and another attorney aboard at the same time. He ran like kind of a general practice, civil litigation, real estate, criminal defense. And so there was different areas of law that I got to see. And one reason that I kind of was like all in on criminal defense was just that of the various kind of cases that I worked on. I was like, this is where the fun is at, and this is where the real personal connection is. But both in terms of clients and in terms of opposing counsel, a lot of my experience with the other types of cases that I was handling was that you didn't really get the chance to kind of form a deep connection with clients. It really was, I kind of viewed a lot of those matters through the lens of case versus client. And, this is just, like, this is a thing to be working on and not a person to be helping. And I feel like with criminal defense, it is such a personal experience to help clients. And I've, one of the things that is just so positive to me about the state of criminal defense in North Carolina is that the vast majority of attorneys that I talk to that handle criminal defense cases absolutely love criminal defense. And the number one reason that they do is because they like helping people. And so it's just like such a good group of lawyers to be a part of.
And I would expand on that to the specific point about, they not only like helping people, but they like helping other attorneys. And I cannot say enough about when I was new into the practice of law. I'm only, I'm about 2.5 years in right now, so I'm still relatively new, all things considered. But like my first couple of months, my first couple of weeks, obviously Ben was wonderful with, like, I was his shadow for a long time, and he would introduce me to everyone, and I would get a feel, and he would explain what was going on, and I was able to get like a really good idea about how court worked and, the nitty gritty of practice. But I cannot say enough about the local bars of, the local defense bars and prosecutors, where you just have people that realize that you're new.
Yeah.
and they help you. And if you have a question, you say, hey, what should I do here? Or who do I talk to? Or where do I go? Or, what's the code to the attorney room? Just the amount of people that will go out of their way to give you good advice and make sure that you understand what they're saying and just help you through the process because they love what they do and they want to impart that, moving forward. It was just so cool. It was really, really cool.
Yeah,
So
100% agree. Yeah, no, I definitely had, I reached out to, almost immediately upon opening my own practice, I reached out to two of the kind of bigwig lawyers here in Asheville, Al Messer and Andy Banzoff. And, immediately they wrote me back and, gave me some ideas of different materials to get a hold of and, just open the door. Hey, if you ever want to sit down and talk. And so I think, yeah, it is such a beautiful kind of practice area for that reason, for that kind of, willingness to share knowledge. And, I think that's one of the things that I am kind of hoping that we can kind of continue the conversation as a kind of criminal defense bar on the whole, really in terms of a business conversation. Because I feel like when it comes to the practice of law, there is no end to, the openness of communication and help that other attorneys are willing to extend. But there is a little bit more science, maybe not to the point of crickets, but there's definitely less of a conversation about the business of criminal defense. And that's something that I think really can be expanded a lot. And so I know that business is something that is very, very much an interest point on your end. And so what in terms of, life before law school, or life with practicing law and working with Ben, what would have been some of the biggest business lessons that have kind of been a part of that journey?
I would say first, I got this one from my dad, actually. My dad did sales and business development, both outside and inside the legal industry for a fair amount of time. And he recounted a story to me about, I think he was talking to somebody at a company, and he said, what is the one thing that you wish lawyers understood or would do differently? And the answers that he would get was return the phone call. So I
Yes.
think at the beginning,
Yeah.
and it's, we have our ethical duties to do this as well, but it's just be in communication, be able to communicate in a timely fashion, be there, answer the phone call, return the text, return the email. And I like to think that that's one of the things that we focus on, is being available to our clients and, communicating. Because at the end of the day, it's a stressful procedure. It's a stressful process.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with law and you don't know what's going on, you have all these questions about what's going to happen in my life. Am I going to jail? Am I going to be able to drive my kids? You want to be able to get an answer to those questions. So I think one of the number one things is just be open to communicating. I think that's a facet of this,
100%.
though, is the idea of remembering that it's a people-centric business, specifically criminal defense work. It's a people-centric business. And, you need to communicate with people. So I would say, it stems from that, is that it's about the people. And one of the main things is making sure that you're communicating, you're showing up, you're doing what you said that you're going to do, and you're answering the calls.
Yeah, I think that is huge. It can't be understated. It's so simple, but it's not easy. I mean,
It's
and to
not.
some extent it is easy, but like, it's one of those things where it's like, there's got to be something more, there's got to be some miracle answer that's, better than answering phone calls. But literally, I think that's probably like the number one thing you could do to help your business. And I think when it comes to, when it comes to, basically just delivering the client experience and delivering like a great experience to clients. This is not to say you don't want to know, if you're handling a DWI case, that you don't want to, know the law back and forward, know your local bench and, understand all of the nuances that can happen, be, zealous advocate for your client. But if you return, phone calls and text, emails, whatever it might be, like you just mentioned, a lot of things can go wrong with the case and your client will still feel great about representation. If you just, respond in a timely fashion to client questions, you've got such a edge in terms of having, from the client's perspective, this was, money well spent. This was, the expectation, the delivery of service that I expected. And, there's so many things that are outside of our control. Answering a phone call is within our control. Like we
Yeah.
might as well just like land that punch when we can land
Yeah.
that punch. And it's a major differentiator. This would be like last point I make, but I think it's so important. Phone calls are a major differentiator because I do think that there is a potential expectation from a lot of clients that you are not going to return their calls, that you're going to be difficult to get in touch with. And so if you basically break that expectation by answering calls quickly, and, it's like, I've heard, probably at this point, like hundreds of clients be like, hey, I know you're really busy. And so like, again, their expectation is you're going to try to like shoo them off the phone. And it's like, I'm here to listen, like, tell me what you want. There's no rush. Just tell me what you want to talk to me about it. And I can feel like this, almost like discomfort on their end of like, oh my gosh, I'm wasting this guy's time. And it's like, no, this is what you hired me to, this is
Right.
part of what you hired me to do. So I think that answering the phone is, again, simple, but,
Yeah.
humongous.
And I think you touched on another great point, which is listening. And,
Yeah.
you just have the time to listen to someone. People are going through really tough stuff. Even if it's a speeding ticket, it could be the difference between them being able to drive. And if they can't drive, that could be disastrous.
Yeah.
There's no circumstance that is too small to take some time and listen to somebody that's reaching out to you because they have a problem in their life and they're wanting you to help it. So listening, I very much agree with you there. It's very important.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I think, one of the, interesting, kind of questions that I have for you in terms of your perspective on this, in the role of kind of associate attorney, what is, one of the ways that you kind of see being able to contribute to the business development of the firm? And so, I think that there is, there's an expectation when you come on as a lawyer, especially in response to, advertisement for looking for a trial lawyer. I think there are a lot of young criminal defense lawyers that's what they're looking for, is I want to get some trial experience, sink my teeth into a case. But in terms of kind of whether it's delivering great service for a client, developing some sort of referral partnerships, anything else. What are kind of is your thought process in terms of, kind of contributing to the financial success of the firm?
I think that a main goal of an associate attorney should be to try to bring in what your income, like whatever it is taking to hire you and to have you, the expenses that go on to bring on an associate attorney. I think that one of the main focuses is at a baseline covering that and then building on that. You want to be a value add to your firm. So I think that's an important thing. It's just focusing on being hungry and doing the work and making sure that you're doing what you need to do to make your value as an associate attorney, worth it, basically. I mean, I think that it's also, there's a newness to being an associate that lends itself to communication and putting yourself out there, and it's all new and it's exciting, So, I mean, I hand out business cards like candy. I'm always doing that. And it's just a way, it's kind of like a way to kind of not revitalize, but just be an active, what's the word I'm looking for, spokesperson,
Yes.
maybe, for your firm, being out there on the streets, doing what you're doing, talking to people, engaging people, talking about what you're doing. So I think I think that brings a lot to it too. I don't know if that exactly answered your question.
No, 100%. I think you've talked a lot about both in that answer and in our conversation, the importance of kind of like treating other people like human beings and also developing relationships with other people.
Yeah.
And, I think that, part of the value that anybody at the firm brings, whether it is, managing partner, associate, person answering the phones, really doesn't matter is, are you building the reputation of the firm, in the way that, again, we're trying to obviously build the reputation online as much as possible, but in real time, how is that reputation kind of being earned? And so I think when you go into the courthouse and you treat everybody in the courthouse with respect, and you go into the clerk's office and you're having that same freedom of time. I think that one of the things that, again, people at the courthouse even are not expecting, often is just this kind of rushed conversation with a lawyer, just, kind of, these are the documents I need to file, and then running out to the next thing. And, sometimes that's necessary. Sometimes you got to get to the next courthouse,
Right.
but I feel like developing, any relationship that you can develop is just so critical. So I love the idea,
So
of having those business cards handy and passing them out like candy is huge, because that is part of building the brand, so to speak, is really just kind of establishing that constant connection point with people.
Yeah, yeah. It really comes down to just treating people how you like. Just if the shoe is on the other foot, how would you want to be treated in that situation?
Yeah.
Think about where that other person, what they're doing, what they've probably been dealing with all day. Do you want to add to that, or do you want to be a source of positivity? Do you want to be somewhere where
Yes.
they're going to want to help you out? They're going to want to, assist you with whatever it is. Because I mean, we were I we rely on everybody in the system. Everybody. There's nobody. Everybody is so important in the system. So I think it's just very important to treat everybody in the system with the requisite amount of respect.
100%. Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's huge. Um, in terms of kind of the work culture that you all have, kind of describe what that feels like. Again, you talked about the importance in kind of the offer extension being kind of we're trial focused, but what is kind of the work culture at your law firm?
It's great. It's really great. It is not a golden handcuff situation where I feel like I'm doing so much and I have no time to live my own life. It's busy, but you do what you have to do. You take care of your work, and then when I'm not at work, I'm not at work. And if there's an emergency, you got to deal with it. But by and large, the expectation is that when you're at work, you're working hard. But then when you're not at work, you're living your life. So the fact that I could do a job that I love, and I could still do an amateur orchestra during the week, and I could see my family every Sunday and not have to worry about that, that's really important. And then, there are times where things are very busy, or you have something very big coming up, and you got to hunker down, and you got to do it. But what I appreciate about the work-life balance is that when there are the times that you really got to lock in, that you have the energy, and you have the
Yeah.
reserves that you can just
Yeah.
do. It's not a total. You're not in a constant state of stress. So I really appreciate that about how Ben treats the office with regard to work. When you're working hard, but you have that time to yourself to live your life, and to focus on the things outside of work that are also important to you. So I'm really appreciative of being in a place where there's a stated and enforced value on that.
Yeah, I think that's so huge. I mean, I really think that we are probably at a point in terms of societally that if you don't have respect for, people's lives outside of the business, that you're going to have a really hard time
You're
hiring
gonna have a
people.
bad time.
We've definitely kind of shifted in a major way. That focus of work is everything, and you owe your entire life to the company, so to speak, to a place where it's kind of like the way that you can foster the best relationship with the client from your team is by treating your team like royalty. And I think that is such a huge part of the delivery of great service to the client. Is if your team's not taken care of, then you're not going to be able to kind of through your team pass that along. And so I've definitely Leah Shelberg, who was recently on the podcast, shared something, very similar about work-life culture in her firm. And I think that, having that trust there of like, the other people that I'm working with are here to look out for my best interest and help take care of me when, times are tough, when, I'm struggling on this particular assignment, or I've got too many things on the plate. Having the trust to be able to reach out to somebody else on the team, or ask for help or advice is just so critical. And I think that's I mean, again, from a culture standpoint, that's really critical in terms of keeping great people that have come to the team, remaining strong on the team, is that work-life balance that you just described. I think it's huge.
For sure.
So in terms of, some of the opportunities that are out there for defense lawyers or law firms in 2024, what, if anything, do you see as kind of unique opportunities for those of us in criminal defense?
It's funny, off the top of my head, I think that there's no way to not talk about 2024 and not talk about the elephant in the room, e-courts. And I'm not going to go too far into e-courts. But I think that it does present an opportunity because it allows for the e-filing and things like that, where I think that your ability to practice and expand your practice area, depending on the type of case and what you were doing, to counties that may be outside of your general operating area, is expanded because of the ease at which you can file and do things and work. Now, that doesn't mean that you can show up and do something for Clemens County and you're never going to have to show up there ever, but maybe it decreases the amount of trips that you'll have to take. Yes. From 5 to 1, and then it becomes economically or financially feasible for you to take a client out that way. So I think that one of the sides of the e-courts equation is that it does now allow people the ability to work remotely in the criminal defense arena and in the civil arena as well, because it's for both, in a way that maybe we weren't able to do so, or with the ease that we didn't have before. So I would say 2024, make the most out of e-courts, because it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere, and we might as well get as much positivity as we can out of it.
I 100% agree. I've kind of shared in recent episodes some of my thoughts on e-courts. I won't do too deep of a dive here, but I 100% agree that it's an opportunity, and it's something that is somewhat of a mandated opportunity. And then there's also, opportunity, outside the mandate, like you just talked about, being able to file anywhere. I mean, we've filed now several expunctions in counties that we would otherwise never travel to. Like, I mean, just this is, allowed for that opportunity to be able to get something done in a place that before was just totally untouchable to kind of our bandwidth. Right. But even within, kind of the mandated part of using e-courts, if you go in with that attitude of, this begrudging attitude of I'm only do what I have to, I think that you're really going to miss out. And it's a massive competitive advantage to me for lawyers that are going into it with like the mindset that this is a real opportunity for us to kind of, get things filed faster. Obviously, the court system's got to catch up with it. There's all kind of problems that exist with kind of how it is set up logistically speaking. But I do think a lot of those things will get ironed out. It'll go faster in some counties than others. But the more that you can approach it with that positive mindset, I really do think makes a difference, as opposed to just kind of like, uh, grumbling and complaining about it. So that, yeah, just wanted to add, I 100% agree with the attitude.
The positivity is important. I think, obviously it's still very important that to the extent that any system unduly burdens its citizens and its society and its court system, the changes that can be made to address that for the best interest of the system and the citizens of the state it's supposed to serve, it's vitally important to make sure that things are being addressed as well. At the same token, be positive about the things that there are to be positive of and utilize them to the best of your abilities. Right?
100% agree. Well, with as we come to a close here, Rob, final kind of question on my end would be, in terms of improving the criminal defense bar at the local level, kind of what if anything, I mean, you've just, spoken to, some of the amazing advice that you got from other local attorneys as you were kind of coming into the criminal defense world. How can we improve the local criminal defense bar?
I think it comes down to communication, and it's interesting because there's a lot of groups, there's a lot of communication, there's certain subgroups depending on which bars you're in, of different small communities. But what I think, if I think that there's anywhere for improvement, I think that there is some way to utilize technology as it exists today. I think to maybe make it so that these groups can speak together and with each other with a little bit more ease. So I would just say, as a general rule, I think I look forward to perhaps using where we are in the year 2024 and our ability to use technology. I think we can use that to communicate with each other in a more efficient and more in a way that's beneficial for all of us. So just the use of technology would be my main thing, and using it to communicate.
Yeah, 100%. It's funny because the really the local defense bar here in Buncombe, Megan Burke, who doesn't really handle much in the way of criminal defense cases now. I think she represents the U.S. Soccer, like, Women's Players Association, so kind of big wig in the sports world at this point. But she kind of got the Buncombe County Criminal Defense Bar off the ground, and the way that she did that was literally by like creating a Google group, email group that basically everybody could, just have like a shared listserv and communicate back and forth. And that was, 10, 15 years back. And so, yeah, I mean, in terms of just tapping into the technology, I do think that there's a lot of opportunities for us to really be bouncing ideas off of one another in a more, maybe even more like global way from, outside of just your local county. But I think anything that can be done to enhance the communication with all of the, amazing technology that exists is huge. So I love that idea. Well, Rob, I appreciate very much the conversation and thoughts. I mean, it's so inspiring. Ben has been like a hero of mine in terms of what he's been doing for a long time now. So it's just a blast talking to you and your experience with Ben, and then kind of your journey through law school and into practice. So very much appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom with the audience.
Thank you again for having me. It's been a pleasure speaking with you as well.
Hopefully it won't be too long before the next call.
For sure. You take care.